Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Benjamin Hale. We warmly welcome the family of Sapper Wilfred Nicholas Temby, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, would you now please stand and join in singing the national anthem?
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sapper Wilfred Nicholas Temby. Wilfred Temby was born on the 16th of February 1895 in the Melbourne suburb of Clifton Hill, the youngest son of John and Mary Temby. He received his education at the local Gold Street State School in Collingwood and served in the Senior Cadets and Citizens Force before taking up an apprenticeship with Mulready, Provan and Clark, woodworkers in Fitzroy. After completing his apprenticeship in 1915, he worked as a joiner in Melbourne. Wilfred Temby enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 22nd of December 1915. He was allocated to the 2nd Field Company Engineers as a sapper and embarked from Sydney on the troop ship Macquarie in April 1916. After a brief stop in Egypt in May 1916, Sapper Temby continued to England, where he continued training with his unit. In August, he embarked for the Western Front, joining the rest of his unit after the carnage at Pozières and Morquay Farm earlier that month. Temby's company was sent to a relatively quiet sector of the front around Ypres, where the men were able to rest and work on repairing roads and trenches which had been destroyed or damaged in earlier battles. Sapper Temby's introduction to the Western Front was initially quiet, as his duties consisted of filling in shell holes on roads and removing obstacles, building dugouts and repairing trenches. In September, his company's work extended to constructing tramways and concealing them with camouflage. In November 1916, Sapper Temby was serving with his company in the lines around Gaudecourt in France. British attacks in the region a month earlier had pushed the front line into a valley below Bapaume, giving the enemy the advantage of the high ground. Here, Australian units were preparing for a second attack after heavy rain in the region reduced the battle into a quagmire. On the 1st of November, Temby was among a party of sappers sent out to drain and clear a communications trench near the front lines. Around midnight, as the men were finishing their work and preparing to return to billets, the enemy began shelling their position. A high explosive shell landed in their trench, killing 3 men outright and wounding several others. Among the dead was 21-year-old sapper Wilfred Temby. News of Temby's fate reached his family in Australia shortly after. The local newspaper reported his death, saying, "He had a fine patriotic spirit, and notwithstanding excellent worldly prospects, he was resolved to go and do his share in the defence of the Empire. Sympathy is felt for the bereaved, who have made so great a sacrifice in the great cause for which the Allies are fighting." Sapper Temby was buried in the front lines near where he fell. In the aftermath of the war, his remains were relocated to the AIF Burial Ground Cemetery near Fleur, where he remains today beneath the inscription, "A devoted son, a loving brother, and a true patriot." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed by the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sapper Wilfred Nicholas Temby, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.